Welcome back to the course. Before we get started, I wanted to talk about some fun news. Godot 4.2 has just released and it comes with many great features and fixes. I wanted to get some feedback on if you, the amazing viewer, would actually like me to upgrade from 4.13 to 4.2 and then go through the process of getting our current project up to date and working with it. Now to the video. Today we'll be learning about health values and how we can handle kind of entity death. We'll be creating two new managers, the health handler and the death handler. Now, a quick thing about the system, due to how we are actually kind of using the collected coins amount as a health value, we will need to do some fun and slightly odd coding things to keep this usable for every entity and not just the player. Now, I will show you the normal health and death system that I use for every other game that isn't just using the coins as a health value, so don't worry. This whole course is supposed to give you transferable knowledge, and I'll do my best to make sure that you can learn and use these systems for other games. Now let's actually move on and create these new handlers. First one we're going to be starting with will be the health handler. So to do that, we're going to create a new scene. It's going to be a 2D scene, and we're going to just name it health handler. We're going to save this under the scenes handlers folder. We'll give it a script, and we're going to go and give it a class name of health handler. Go. Now we're going to need a few starting variables. The first one is going to be for our max underscore health. That way we can set the max health for any entity that we actually want to have health. So var max health be of type int, and we'll set it equal to 0. Then we're going to come down and we'll create a new normal non-exported variable, and we'll call this the current underscore health. It'll be of type int, and we'll also set it to 0. And now actually, I'm going to go through and show you how I would normally set up a health handler to kind of handle health and setting health and things like that, and then I'll walk you through the version that we're going to be using. So the first thing we want to do is get a set health function. So we're going to create a function called set underscore health. It'll have one parameter of type value, and it will be an integer. It'll have no return type, so it'll be void. And then we need to check a few things. We want to check, right, because what this function is going to basically do is set the health of so it's going to set our current health to our max health at the start of when this thing first gets created. That way everything has a set health value. Now, because we're passing in a value, this is where it gets a bit odd. All this really needs to do is go current health is equal to max health. And this will only ever get called once. But once again, this value here is where things get a bit weird and a bit confusing. This is where some of the new stuff that we're going to have to kind of focus on with how we're handling health comes in. Because this is how you would normally handle health. You'd set the health like so, and then you'd create a damage function. So we'll call this func handle underscore damage. It will take a value of type integer, have a void return type, and then you would just go current health minus equals value, and then this handle damage function would actually be called through the hitbox or hurtbox, whichever one you set to take your damage values in. But once again, because we are using something a bit odd and a bit specific, we're going to need to kind of modify these a little bit. And to do that, we're going to come up to where we've exported our max health, and we are going to use an @export underscore enum. So we're basically going to export some states, and those states are going to just be for the type of our characters or our character types. So we're going to do export enum parentheses and then past those we're going to write var, we'll name it type, we'll set it to a type of string, and we'll set it equal to, let's just set it equal to player for now. Now inside the parentheses of the export enum, it actually requires some arguments. So we're going to just pass through the type of player, and then we'll pass through the type of enemy. So these are the two types, right? You will be able to, if I save this, Control S and save, and then I click on the health handler, you'll see here we've got this little drop-down list with a little selectable box for the player and the enemy. Which means, depending on which one of these is selected, we'll be able to do certain things. So now, for setting health, because we're not going to be setting health through the max health value up here. We actually want to kind of set this through the coin manager, but we don't want everything to be set through the coin manager. At the set health function, we are going to write if value does not equal 0. So if the value does not equal 0, it is more than 0, we are going to then go max health is equal to the value, and then current health is equal to max health. And then we can just do a simple return to stop it from running any other code. And this will basically go, okay, this is the current value, we want to set the max health to this specific value, and then that's pretty much it. And that's just for setting the max health. So let's rename this to set underscore max underscore health, and then hit Control S and save. And now for handling the damage, we're actually going to need to pass through a kind of a match statement to kind of figure out what type of character we're kind of handling the damage for. So we're going to write match, and then we'll use the type, and then we'll set the first case for our match statement equal to the player. And on player, we're going to need to do a couple of things. Let's just first set our current health minus equals value, so we're taking damage. And then let's hit Control S and save, and let's go back to our hitbox handler here. If you remember correctly, when we're applying the hit, we're doing a couple of things. So on area hit, signal bus dot emit on hit. This only really functions when it's kind of the player, right? And that's a bit of a problem, because if this is only linked to the player, it means nothing else can actually take damage and only the player can. That's fine if you don't want to add any type of damaging attacks that the player can do. But we're going to want to add damaging attacks that the player can do, so we're going to need to change this a bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the signal bus dot emit on hit out with a Control X, or highlight it and then hit Control X, that cuts it out. We'll go back into the health handler, and then under the match in handle damage here under player, we're going to put that in. So now when we're handling the damage here, it's going to go, oh, is this the player? If this is the player, send this signal. This signal goes into the collectible manager here, so on hit connect, and this is the thing that actually modifies the current coin collected value, or our quote-unquote health value. Now we're going to set up our secondary match statement here, so we're just going to set this one for the enemy, and all it's going to do is current health negative equals value, and that's all it actually needs to do in general. Now, just before we finish off and move away from the health handler, at the very bottom here, we're going to do one more if check. We're going to go if current health is less than or equal to 0, current health equals 0. This will stop our health from going negative, and it will allow us to do a few other things. It'll allow us to actually call other functions in this when our health hits 0. Which is, that's great, that's fine, that's perfect, kind of want that. So that's our health handler pretty much set and sorted. So let's go and now kind of do our death handler. So I'm going to go add a new scene, 2D scene, call this death handler, hit Control S and save, give it a script, extend the node, or give it the class underscore name, of death handler. Now, death handlers are always very simple. They don't actually require a lot of code to function, but separating them into their own handlers like this allows you to do a lot more when something dies, i.e. you can fire off a couple of different signals, you can get a few different things going, and you can just kind of turn this into something really cool. But all we really need to do here is, one, give it access to its parent. So we're going to create an export var for parent. We'll give this type node, then we'll set it equal to null, because it's not going to need to do much. It's just going to need to use a specific function, and that is going to be the func handle underscore death function. There you go. And give it a void return type, and then inside of the handle death here, we're just going to call the parent, and then we're going to call the queue-free functionality for it. And that is how our entire death handler is set up for now. In the future, we'll come back and we'll start adding certain things to this, like playing certain particle effects, or getting something reinstantiated, or a bunch of other things to give some kind of juice to the game, so to speak, make it actually look kind of good. But for now, we only need it to just queue-free whatever needs to be queue-freed. With our health handler and our death handler sorted, we actually do need to go back into our health handler and do something fun. We need to add a new exported variable here, because the health handler is going to need access to the death handler, because the health handler is going to be the thing that calls the handle death function for the death handler. So we'll create a new exported var. It will be called death_handler. It will be of type death handler, and we'll set it equal to null. Now, back all the way down here when we're going in our handle damage, if current health is less than or equal to 0, current health equals 0, we can then just go death handler dot handle death. And we can also remove this current health equals 0 statement, but we'll keep it in as just a sanity check to make sure our health is always at 0 or when it gets to 0. And then we'll just call handle death. And that's it. That's our health and death handler system pretty much set up and sorted. But this wouldn't be this would be a relatively short video if that's all we had to do. And there are some odd things we need to do to actually get this to function with our coin system. So let's first go into our hitbox handler where we're handling the taking of the hit and things like that. And then on area hit here, where we were using that signal originally, we want to grab the health handler and then pass in the handle damage and a value to it. But that means this also needs to have an exported variable. So export var for our health handler. Health handler, and then we'll set it equal to null, like so. Now, we probably sat there going, but well, now we're starting to give things a lot of connected references to each other. And that's kind of true, but this is the best part about exported variables is once you set them, you don't usually need to worry about where they are being moved around to. So if I set the health handler to have access to the death handler, or the death handler to have access to the health handler, and then I move it around within a scene, as long as it still exists, the exported variable functions. And that's perfect. That is literally all we need to do. That's a great thing about Godot. So on area hit function, we are going to want to grab our health handler and then use dot handle damage. And then we want to pass in the value of 1, because once again, we haven't set up anything to actually hold stats for damage on anything yet, so 1 will do for now. And that's our hitbox all set up and sorted. Now, if we go to our collectible manager, there are some things in here that are going to kind of cause some issues, right? Our health is going up and down depending on what's happening. But our coin collectible manager and our coin manager in general, so the HUD variable, the thing that actually shows up on screen, and then the actual collectible manager itself, need to be able to reflect that change too. So for the on-player hit value here, we need to go and pass through just after where we're setting the current coins collected negative equals value. We need to go and make sure that this never goes below 0. And to do that, we just can go if current coins collected is less than or equal to 0, current coins collected equals 0. Hit Control S and save. Now, what I'm going to do really quickly is I'm going to be setting the current coins collected to 3. This is going to be the starting life value, or our starting coins collected value. Because our little alien, he's not completely broke. He has some money available. Now, to get this to also reflect in our coin counter here, we need to go and change this value here, coin underscore counter underscore number dot text. We need to change this to 3 as well. Hit Control S and save. Now, I can go and click play very quickly, and we can see here, coins 3. There you go. Our coins are set to 3. It's perfect. Also, one thing I didn't mention in the last video is I'm getting, you'll probably notice that these blue boxes here, these are all of the hitboxes and collision objects specifically. If you want to know how to see that, you just come up to debug and then you enable visible collision shapes. Sometimes you need to do this just to figure out what's going on and where, but for now, we don't actually need it because we're not handling anything physics-based. We just need to be able to see the game. So with that stuff done, let's actually go back into the game and run through and make sure. There you go. There's the crash. And this is one of the only issues with kind of adding these export variables is if you don't set these up, it's going to have an issue. So the hitbox here in the player doesn't actually have a health handler assigned to it. So let's go to the player entity, hit Control-Shift-A, we'll add a health handler to it. And then we will make sure it's assigned to type player. And then one more time, we're going to Control-Shift-A on the player entity and we'll add a death handler here. The parent needs to be the player entity. And then, or the parent in the death handler that we set up needs to be the player entity. And then under the health handler, we actually need to go and make sure we set the death handler as the thing to handle. Make sure to go to our hitbox handler as well and assign the health handler so it knows what it needs to call. And there we go. We immediately dropped and died. Now, why did we immediately drop and die? Well, that's actually because we're not setting our health to anything yet. Our coin value is technically set at 0, or at least the health handler here keeps our health value set at 0 because we're not setting it to what the actual current coins collected is. Now, to do that, we actually need to go through our player and do this. Now, I'm going to give you this little quick thing. I don't entirely like this system. There are better ways of doing this, and there are. We will be reworking it quite a bit in the future. But for now, all we really need it to do is function. And that's kind of the idea of prototyping. It just needs to function. After functionality, we can make it look pretty. So let's get it to function. So to get it to function, we're going to need to have access to two things. We're going to need to have access to the collectible manager so we can actually get that current coins collected amount. So let's go and create a new exported variable for this. So export var collectible underscore manager. Give it the type of collectible manager, and I've just remembered we haven't actually set up the class name for our collectible manager yet. So let's go into there, or into our collectible manager script, and give it a class underscore name of collectible. I hate spelling this word. There you go, manager. Control S and save. Go back into the player entity, set the collectible manager's type to collectible manager, and then set it equal to null. Hit Control S and save. Go click on our player. We're going to want to assign our collectible manager here. Now, the problem with this is if we go to our player entity and we try to assign a collectible manager, it's not there, which means this needs to be assigned after the fact, meaning it needs to be assigned when it's in the main scene, when the collectible manager exists. Now, once again, I don't like this system, but we will fix this system so it's a bit more automatic, so we don't need to go through and personally, or physically assign them ourselves. So with the collectible manager actually assigned, we now need to go into our physics process, and this is the other part I dislike, but we need to go and set our health handler to have the correct values, which means we're going to need to have access to the health handler here. So let's drag that across, make an onReady variable for it as a health handler. So with our onReady variable set up for our health handler, what we can do in the physics process here is we can call our health handler dot set max health and then set the value of it to the collectible manager dot current coins collected. Now this kind of goes back into a bit of what I was saying before of this is a functional system. That's kind of it. It's not a pretty system, it's a functional system. And one of the big reasons why I say that is because what we're doing right here is we are always getting the value to our max health, and we're setting our max health value to however many coins we are collected. But that also means our current health value is being set to the max health value every single physics frame. That is, one, it's inefficient, two, it's a bit nonsensical, and three, it can cause problems. But we will come back to this and kind of fix it and make it look a bit prettier and actually get some proper damage values going through as well. But this is mostly just so we can kind of move on to the more primary systems of the karma system. And that is kind of pretty much everything set and sorted. Now, let's go through our health handler, our death handler, and our hitbox handler, make sure they all look fine. Let's go to the main scene, hit Control S and save, and then make sure the player entities collectible manager is set and sorted. Now let's go and give it a test. We are updating our values and we are dying. Yes, now that's pretty much the entire system set, sorted and done. We can move on to our karma system after this, and then once the karma system is done and the upgrade system is done, we are going to be moving this from prototype to proper project to work on, which means we are going to be overhauling a lot of these systems and doing them in a much cleaner, more kind of concise and less spaghetti way, which means we'll be moving more into better practice and things like that, which can be a bit spooky, but is a lot of fun. But for now, that is kind of all I can show you for the day. I hope you're having a good day. I hope this hasn't been too odd of a video. This is just a bit of an odd one to do. Yeah, anyway, I hope you're having a great game dev journey, and I will see you in the next video.